Hello, thank you for tuning in for another episode. Today we are talking about Drowning Prevention Month. Statistics from Columbia University state children with autism are more than 160 times likely to drown than those of their peers.
Wow. Why is that? Why do you think that statistic is so high?
Well, joining us today we have Stacy Hoagland from the Autism Society of Florida, who has been advocating for change in this field, in this area of unfortunate circumstances. And Stacy,
Yeah,
can you comment on this?
yes. Well, I'm so glad to be here with you guys. This is awesome. You do such a wonderful job with the podcast and benefit so many people. So, in relation to drowning, we have a couple factors. So, for one, a lot of our young children, they're very self directed. So, they don't really think that they should let someone know where they're going because they're interested in something and they just tend to want to go grab the enjoyment and engage in whatever that might be. So that's the first thing. And that's what actually leads a lot of young children to die from drowning as well. So it's not necessarily an autism thing. It just seems a little bit more elevated in autism because our kids are less likely to go tell a parent that they're going to go outside. They are extremely drawn to water. And when we think about it, there's no other experience that you can have that's like being in the water. And especially if the day before they had a really great day in the pool with their family, they could very naturally assume that even when they're by themselves, it would be as wonderful as it was the day before. The lack of wisdom, oftentimes, in recognizing the dangers of water if you don't know how to swim, is something that a lot of people with autism tend to not really think about and may lack the generalization skills to know that I need to have the support with me, like I do when I'm in swim lessons, like I do when I'm with the family in the water, and therefore get into a very, very dark and dangerous situation when they don't have those skills.
It's almost like they have eh, like this infinite pool of courage where they because they don't understand, and it's great in some aspects, but at the same time, things like this, it's scary. What can families do to help prevent this?
Well, the number one thing that we at the Autism Society talk to parents about is having door alarms. I have talked to multiple police officers now who have managed to save children from dying from drowning, where the kids were literally in the water already and they were able to pull them out. Not because they're, well, yes, it was great. The police had training, they knew to look in the water. So that was all fabulous. But it was the door alarm. It was the alarm on the door that went off that alerted the family to call 911 so that the officers could get there in the amount of time that was necessary. And, it literally takes 2 minutes for someone to drown. So we want to make sure that we have those alarms. A lot of families, and society is becoming more technologically advanced. So there's all types of different types of tracking devices that kids can literally wear. I have a friend who has a system where on his phone he sets up what's called a geo fence, and his son wears a thing just looks like a watch. And once his son gets out of the geo fence, his he gets an alert on his phone. Everybody has their phones with them these days, no matter who you are. And we really like that type of system because some of the older, more antiquated systems, first you have to know that the person is missing, then you have to call the police, and the police have to have this particular type of honing device in order to find you. And that device may be, I don't know, 20 miles from your home. So those type of things are really getting away from those and more into the things that anybody could use. Anybody can get these apps, anybody can get these devices by ordering them. So those, of course, but swimming lessons. Kids got to know how to swim. And we have a list on our website. If you go to the water safety page, towards the bottom of the page, there's a list of swimming instructors that have been recommended to us by parents. So they have had a good result with a swimming instructor because, not all swimming instructors are created equal. And some are more capable than others in teaching children with autism. We also provide training to water safety instructors on how to teach kids with autism. We're not swim instructors, but we do help them understand some of the things that we hope will be helpful in recognizing, for instance, the that most people with autism are more visual, as far as visual learners. Not everybody is, though. That's like a misnomer out there that a lot of people assume, oh, well, if you have autism, you must be a visual learner. Yes, most are, but not all. So, really helping them be able to look at the individual, not put us all in a basket and think everybody's going to learn the same way. Look at the individual to see how do they learn, and then helping them in that way. So, we want door alarms. We want to make sure that if a family is interested in some type of tracking device, we could do that. Barriers, so fencing around pools. If you have a pool in the backyard, you really need to have barriers to that. One of the things, though, when you said like neighbors, um, our kids, they don't care if it's their backyard pool or it's a neighbor's pool. There really is no difference if it's fun. And I heard kids screaming and having a good time over there. It's open season. We've had lots of people call us and let us know. A lot of times it had led them to calling 911, where they look outside and there's a child in their pool. They call 911 because it's not their child. And sometimes the kids are even naked because our kids may be told, don't swim with your clothes on, and they will get naked and get in the neighbor's pool. So we want to make sure that all neighbors know you, know your kid, because just because you might have fencing around your pool, that doesn't mean that your neighbor will. So we want to make sure of that. And then the one other thing is, Florida especially is loaded with water. We have retention ponds and lakes and canals and just everything everywhere. And it is extremely different to know how to swim in a pool and know how to swim in a lake. And so it's really very important to have those other things in place, those alarms and such, because your kid might be able to swim in a pool, but if they fall into a lake, there's no side to grab onto. And so they really, all the other, we call it the layers of protection, all those other things need to be in place.
Absolutely. It's amazing just to even kind of realize that it does take just a few things that you can do at home to prevent, something like this happening to our children. I remember hearing about an old client of mine at a different center that actually passed away from drowning in a retention pond. And it's a reality, and it's heartbreaking to even have to see that one child drowning is one too many at the end of the day.
Yeah, and in the state of Florida, we lost 105 kids last year to drowning. And so we unfortunately lead the nation. And a great part of that reason for that is because we have water everywhere. We have 1.6 million swimming pools, and then all the lakes and retention ponds and all that stuff. The oceans actually, you would think that, oh, it's the oceans, but remember at most beaches we have lifeguards. Uh,
Yeah.
the oceans are actually relatively safe unless you get caught in riptides. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's different. But I'm just talking about, because again, most of our kids who die from drowning, it is that just that they're drawn to the water and they go get in it. So they're not with the family during this event. They've kind of wandered off.
Speaking of the wandering, I heard children with autism have a higher propensity to wander than most children. Most drownings are due to the fact that children are getting out of homes undetected, hence the need for alarms, GPS units, arguably waterproof ones.
Yeah, the National Autism Association does a pretty good job with a couple different things that are related to safety. And they are the ones who kept the data on that. And it's about 40, well, the reporting data is 48% of children with autism wander. However, I actually don't know any parent of a child with autism who hasn't had that moment where you turn and they're gone.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
maybe that only happened once or twice to you, so you're really lucky if that's it. But I can speak just personally. I lost track. I don't know how many times we could be in a grocery store, we could be in a park, we could be in the front yard. I mean, I had to really learn a lot, especially when my kids were young. I could not take my eyes off of him because he and it wasn't trying to do anything intentional. He would just be interested in something and he would just go. It would not cross his mind that he had to let me know.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because something kind of similar happened with me when I was younger. When I was 3 years old, I had my family that was like all out in the pool area, and we didn't have any fencing. We didn't have any like alarms or anything. Thankfully, my mom was outside with my brothers, but I had fallen into the pool. And as a result, I actually swallowed some pool water and was taken to the hospital. Thankfully, nothing came of it, but that could have been something. That could have resulted in a drowning death. Had my mom not been there, had she not called 911, had she not taken the steps to do that. So, yeah, I mean, when it comes to tracking, it's that much more important that we keep our eyes on our children.
Yeah, definitely. We have these things called water watcher tags and that we give out when we do different events. And it gives a little bit of information on the tag, about autism and some of the things that we need to be concerned about when it comes to water safety when related to autism. But what we ask is that when people are maybe at a party, maybe they're at a pool party, they're at a community pool party, something, wherever it might be, that someone wear the watcher tag. And it might just be for 15 minutes, but your job for these 15 minutes is to do nothing other than watch the children in the pool. Because we don't want to, it's a party, right? We want everybody to have a good time. That's why we want each person to kind of take turns, because we unfortunately have had quite a few incidences where there's plenty of people around, but nobody's watching the water and a child dies. And really, I mean, I that would be so horrific to live with, knowing that you were 6 feet away and your child is gone forever. So we have to make sure that you can't make the assumption that your kid is fine, even if they are a swimmer. People get cramps in the water, right? Anybody, right? You get cramps in the water, seizures. Around 35% of those with autism have at least one seizure during the course of their life. I mean, my son has epilepsy as well as autism, and if he has a seizure in the water, he's going to die in the water. I mean, that's flat out. That's what's going to happen to him. And so we are extremely cautious when it comes to anything in the water. My son he was 17 years old when he had his first seizure. We didn't think, we thought, okay, we made it through the woods, right? We got through childhood. And then of course, when he started having them, I delved into it and found that actually it's pretty common for teenagers. They think it's something related to hormones. So you have to be able to watch your kids in the water, because you hopefully will never see a seizure. Because we are, seizures are just, they're horrific. But just in case, you want to make sure that your kids are safe in the water.
Absolutely.
Back to the missing thing, just want to make a point that if you end up noticing that your child is missing, look to the water first. Especially in Florida, there's water everywhere, and it only takes less than 2 inches of about 2 inches of water in less than 30 seconds for a child to drown.
Yep. Retention ponds, lakes, pools, ditches with just a little bit of water everywhere. You got to be really, really vigilant when it comes to looking for our children who wander out in the streets, because chances are they are going to go straight to the water first.
We had in the state of Florida, I think it was 2 years ago, but there was a child who drowned in a horse trough. The one thing that we really try to tell all parents, not just parents of kids with autism, is that, well, I think the biggest barrier, if we'll talk about barriers and why we still have so many children drowning, is
Yeah.
because no one thinks it can happen to them, right? Because everybody thinks, I'm a good parent. I watch my child. This isn't going to happen. This happens to bad parents. That's like this thought that people have out there. And I know people who have lost children to drowning who are incredible parents. They are amazing. They were amazing before their child died. They're amazing after their child died. They are extremely giving. For instance, Casey McGovern started Every Child a Swimmer. And she did that because she lost a child to drowning. And now she not only makes changes here in our state, but really across the world. And she's an amazing advocate and really pours her life and soul into trying to save children and parents in losing their child. So there are amazing people out there, but you can never, ever, ever assume that it can't happen to you. That's why those safeguards are so important, because it's actually safer for you to assume that it can happen to me. That way you're always like making sure that your home is secure, that your doors have locks on it that your kids can't use. Should not make an assumption that because your child has autism, they're not lock pickers, because let me tell you, they're pretty amazing with coming up with how to get out of this space if that's what they're after. And so making sure that the locks are on doors, that you have the alarms on the doors, that there's some type of fencing or barriers around the pools, that you get the swim lessons. Those things are so very important.
Yes, and to throw some more statistics here, uh, the number one cause of children ages 1 through 4 of dying is drowning. And that isn't limited to just little kids. Ages 5 through 14, that is number two.
Yeah, and one of the other things that a lot of people, even the people who work inside water safety, weren't aware of, last year, to that 105 kids in Florida, the children who were 4 to 18 who died from drowning within the 105, 60% of the 4 to 18-year-old kids were kids with autism. So it's not just little ones. It's not just those 2, 3-year-olds that wander outside, but it's a 12-year-old. It's a
Yeah.
15-year-old.
Wow. Just goes to show you how vigilant we have to be.
Really encouraging those swimming lessons too, like encouraging communication. You want to always tell an adult where you're going. You know, don't swim alone. Have a responsible adult with you.
Yeah, don't go anywhere alone. You never know what could happen.
The other thing that a lot of parents, I guess, that I don't think they really think about it, because this is an item that is sold a lot within our department stores, is those little water wings, those little things that go on the kids' arms, and it's just like kind of like float like that. This is not lifeguard approved. Those are not lifeguard approved, even though a lot of people I think make the assumption they are. But those little things, those water wings, there's this other thing called a puddle jumper. Um, those are, anybody who works inside drowning prevention, they don't like either one of those. They tell all parents, do not use those. Um, Particularly for kids with autism, what those have a very high tendency to do is make that child assume that they floated one day with these things on, and if they jump in the water the next day, they're also going to float, even if those things aren't on their arms. So if a parent is going to use those, please build in the fading process, because those alone can trigger a child to have absolutely no fear of the water and jump in without any reservation. And if there's no one around to save them, they will die in the water if they cannot swim.
And don't just fade them out quick.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. We definitely need to fade them out as quickly as we can.
And introduce your child to different areas you could swim, because not everything is a pool. Every environment, us with autism, environments are everything. So we hear, we feel everything that most people don't pay attention to. So you go into a lake or the ocean, it's like, oh, what am I stepping on?
And different swimming styles, we have our different types of paddles, we have our different types of swim movements. So we need to be able to know what these look like, what those are, so that way they can safely swim.
Yeah. And
Now,
things
what
to get adjusted to include like goggles as well.
Well, one of the things that we actually teach when we teach parents, when we teach water safety instructors, and even the water safety instructors, it doesn't really occur to them that for people with autism, they may have to do this. But we actually need to teach them how to get saved. We need to teach them that when a ring is thrown to you, how to put your arm through it so that somebody could pull that the ring to the side. Also, it's called a shepherd's hook that some pools have. It's like shaped like a shepherd's hook, and public pools will have that usually on a wall, so that if somebody's in the water, they could just scoop them out with it. We want our people to know, okay, if somebody's putting one of those towards us, how do we grab it? How do we grab onto it so that we could get pulled to safety? And I think a lot of people assume, well, my kid's going to understand that. That's not always the case. And then
No.
If you as the potential saver, if you can't swim and you jump in the water, two of you are going to die.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that if you are anywhere, unless you live in the desert, you got to know some of these things that you can use as life-saving techniques. The other thing that we do, actually, I forgot about, is we're working with the Florida Fire Chiefs Association, and we provide CPR classes across the state. But you certainly do not have to do that through an autism society. You can call your local fire department and say, I have a child, an adult, whoever with me that has autism or whatever, doesn't matter, and you want to know how to do CPR. They will set you up. They will. They're all so giving, and that's what they're there for. They're there for teaching their community life-saving techniques. So definitely, hook up with them because, it's funny. I've been to several of those now, and I am CPR certified. And when the instructors start to teach them, like they bring out the mannequins and they're teaching them the compressions, how fast you have to go, how long you have to go, and how hard you have to push, it wears you out. And everybody every time says, this is nothing like I thought it was going to be.
Oh,
So
absolutely. I just recently became CPR certified again, and let me tell you, during the time that I was doing it, I was exhausted by the end. It's rigorous.
it is, it's hard. And on TV they make it look so, fashionable, if you will. Oh, we're going to save someone in like 30 seconds, and this is all going to be great. But it's not as easy as it looks. And so if you've never had the actual experience of doing that, even if it's on a mannequin, you really should. And it's funny because the new mannequins that they have, at least not everyone that we've been to, but most of them have this like little monitor in it. So the light stays green when you're pumping the way that you should. So it's good because it gives you a gauge to know exactly what I'm going to need to do for CPR. We should all know CPR because there's all kinds of things that can happen, not just drowning, but we want to know a little bit about choking. We want to know a little bit about even cardiac arrest. How do we respond to that as someone who's a loved one who may be experiencing some type of medical emergency?
I'm aware Autism Society of Florida also provides some social stories you can print out for children as well, so they can take into the water if they get laminated. Can you talk a little bit more about these?
Yeah, so on our website, we actually have a page of all different types of social stories. But on that drowning prevention page, the water safety page, if you scroll down, there is a link there, and it's in PowerPoint format, so you guys can download it and make whatever changes to it that you want. So it's editable, and it's about starting swimming lessons because some kids are really scared. It's a new place, new people, might be loud. This guy's going to be sitting on a stand with a whistle. I don't know that I can stand a whistle. So really having the social story to help your child, if we're talking about parents of young children, helping your child get ready for swim lessons before they even arrive. Because one of the biggest challenges, just in general, for many people with autism, is that their inability or delay in being able to make predictions. Most of us, are constantly making predictions. We're predicting what this interview is going to be like. We're predicting what we're going to do this afternoon and what we're going to have for dinner. But imagine being someone that doesn't naturally do that. Going to a swimming lesson can be really, really, really super scary because you're not going to know what happens and you can't predict what it might be like based upon maybe prior experiences. And so we want to make sure that parents have resources like that. We also encourage our swim schools to also have one so that they can, before the kid even arrives, that they can send to the parents and just to kind of get them ready for when they show up that first day for swim lesson.
Sounds wonderful. Are there any places that you would recommend for getting information or additional information regarding uh, drowning prevention?
Yeah, well, that Every Child a Swimmer is a great resource, so definitely check them out. The National Drowning Prevention Alliance has a wonderful website. They have conferences every year. They're in different places. This year, it just happened to be in Florida. I think next year it's going to be in Colorado. And so but you can go to their website. They have all kinds of information there, and they're wonderful for that. The Red Cross. The Red Cross is actually going through a process right now, and we're involved with this process on updating their guide that they provide to swim instructors. So it's going to include even more information on how to teach children with autism how to swim. So I'm very excited to see that come to fruition. But their website is really good. You really want to look when you start looking for swim instructors, you really want to make sure that they're Red Cross certified, because then you know, okay, this person has gone through a very rigorous program before they're taking on children, especially that they're going to teach how to swim. And we also want to make sure, all these programs that I just mentioned, they also really want to make sure that adults know how to swim. About a third of parents of children don't know how to swim. Parents need to know how to swim. And those organizations offer resources for them as well. So if you are a parent and you do not know how to swim, know that you're not alone. Again, about a third of parents don't know how to swim. But what a fabulous way to enjoy time with your child, but in the water. So I encourage you, don't be embarrassed. There's lots of people who don't know how to swim. Talk to your local swim schools, talk to one of those that I just gave you, and see what they can offer you, because sometimes you'll even have where there's different grants for parents to be able to learn how to swim as well.
Absolutely. A great way to keep our children safe and to be able to bond with them more.
Definitely. And, I mean, I know many kids with autism that their happiest place is in the water. So their real personality comes out. It's so enjoyable. They're getting all their sensory needs met, which is another, there's lots of research they're trying to get done right now that where there's this belief that the sensory component of being in the water also, unfortunately, could lead to drowning because it leads them into the water. When I'm under the water, I really don't notice the pressure unless I'm down, 6 to 12 feet. But I usually notice it in my ears. But my son is extremely in tune with pressure. And like soon as he's in the water, he feels it. He feels it all over him. And think about if you're somebody who is very auditorily overstimulated, when you get in the water and you put your head under, everything is muted. All the
Yes,
sounds are muted.
I can attest to that.
Mhm.
Like I get auditorily overstimulated, so just floating on my back in the water with my ears underwater, could hear nothing. It's so nice.
Yeah, so it can be a very amazing environment for the people that we're talking about. But if they don't have the skills that they need, it can also be a very tragic environment. So we're just trying to make sure that everybody has what they need, so that families can get their kids in the water and could very well see a side of their child that they've actually never seen before, where they're making more connections with them and just really having a good time. Because it doesn't matter who you are as a parent. One of the things we love to see on our kids' faces is them smile and know that they're enjoying themselves. They don't have to verbally communicate that. We can see it. If we're their parent, we can see their happiness. And that's what we all want to have.
Thank you for joining us in today's episode. And if for the audience, if you want any information about these resources, they will be in the description of the episode. Please join us next time for
Or trying new things over the summer. Thanks, everyone.
Expanding Our Horizons.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.